Think it through. So when you lose your job, what then? What now? What can you really do? What are your skills? PowerPoint and Excel?
I keep saying a lot that we are in corporate environments a factory of PowerPoints and Excels without real life skill.
I can tell you, when I worked part-time, I couldn't do that anymore. I mean, I reduced my working time, and even then I had to stand up and stay and walk around, and my body didn't accept that anymore. My body said really fuck you.
I don't think it's normal that we go to kindergarten, school, and then work until we're 65 or 68, or I think by the time we manage to go into the retirement, it's gonna be even 70, and then we get to enjoy our life, because that cannot be. I'm sorry. The thing that you are afraid of is actually the uncertainty.
Yeah.
So you don't know what will happen. I think that's something which is giving you fear, but is a happy uncertainty.
It's freedom.
Exactly, because the other option is the unhappy certainty. It's always
I like this.
It's always a balance between the happy uncertainty or the unhappy certainty. So you have to pick. Good day, because it's not an evening, it's a day, which is nice. It's visible in your background. It's sunny outside. Thank you for accepting the invitation.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Angela left corporate Germany, let go the status and everything that came with it, and decided to move on the countryside, and not on the countryside in Germany, which maybe would have been the easy way, but decided to go even further away and build a different life in Hungary. Angela, what felt better, going through the excavator to your own house, or doing trainings in corporate environment?
I think this is an easy question, right? But maybe your audience want to know the background of this story.
Absolutely. So let's start with the beginning. Tell me about your background in Germany. So where did you start it, and where did you arrive a bit?
Yeah. So my background is, I think I had a career that many really have.
The fact that you do that, the fact that you do this, it all says a lot already.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I can't hide it anymore. I mean, this is good and bad at the same time. I mean, it depends on who is in front of you, because I guess some people don't feel like I take them serious anymore. But it's like a different space right here. But let's start at the beginning. So I have a diploma in industrial engineering, and I worked in sales, in technical sales, as a sales engineer, also as a project manager. First in industry, plant engineering, for example, huge steam boilers and engineering them, selling them, and later on in the automotive industry. And I always had a knack for this kind of technology. I mean, every technology is really interesting because there's an inherent motivation. I want to know. I want to know how things work, like cause and effect, and how difficult this can be to find really a root cause for a failure, for example. And this applies also for people, because later on I became a coach, and it's basically the same structure that's underlying, right? It's cause and effect, and there can be multiple causes for one effect that we feel or that we apply as a pattern as an adult. Yeah, right? So it's not really something very different. But I have to admit that it never felt quite right. I mean, I put so much energy in everything of that. Really, I wanted to have good grades, starting in school, right? But I always kind of struggled. It never came to me easy. I had to do put myself under pressure to have good grades. And I don't know, maybe I didn't understand it back then, but maybe it was not me being too dumb, but it was a structure that I never really felt fine with. It wasn't just mine, right? Like consuming and then applying, because my mind is like, okay, why is that, and why we have to learn this, and what is it good for? And I always question everything, and you can imagine I
The,
felt
the,
quite lonely most of
the
my
the
life.
questioning mentality is not something that the traditional school is supporting. So they like to train you as a soldier. They have to train
Yeah.
you as a soldier. Like, don't look much left and right. Don't question things. They are like this. We always had them like
Yeah,
this.
yeah, that's true. And the whole system is really like the same. It starts in school, and also one aspect that is really obvious now for me is the authority, the person that decides what is wrong or what is right is always someone else. It's always
Absolutely.
outside of you. It starts even in the kindergarten. It starts even in your childhood, right? And depending on which background you have culturally, I mean, I come from a very, I don't know, very good mixed family. My father is an Italian. There's no structure at all, and the other side is what was back then Preußen in German, and they are very structured, and structure and discipline is everything, and so that's a cultural clash. And I guess my mother and my father both like wanted to break out somehow, but it wasn't a
Hmm.
quite balanced relationship. But yeah, it's exploded like every time. And coming from that, I I was programmed, of course, like everyone is programmed from childhood. And so I tried to fit in because I grew up in Germany. I tried to apply the rules. I tried to accept that and understand that, and trust that someone else knows better. That applies for corporate, that applies for the medicine, the doctors, etc. But it never worked. Not really. I mean, I had good times and I had what I can call maybe a career, right? But it was always like, okay, man, this is too narrow for me. I want more. I want to understand more. I want to question more. I want to do things better. I want to do things faster. I see problems. Let me solve the problems because I know, right? And everybody else told me, no, you're too fast. You are too emotional. Or I heard that a lot. Or you are unprofessional. When I identified like structures that really hurt me and I rebelled against that. I set boundaries, etc. And then I was called unprofessional because I'm great in pointing out patterns in other people. And what does it do?
Ooh.
It doesn't help,
Ooh.
right? It triggers even more.
Yeah, no, 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 no. Yeah, it's somehow they make you stay away from you and hide from you. At the end, nothing else.
Yeah,
And the best defensive is the attacking, right? And they start to
attacking.
attack you
Oh
for that.
yeah. Oh man. I mean, really. And this is so. It became more and more apparent in corporate. And I
Hmm.
also while I tried to fit in and do my best, I burned completely out because I couldn't be myself. I couldn't do what the responsibility wanted from me to do. Like it was applied to me, but I did not have the authority
Hmm.
to fulfill responsibilities, like in huge projects,
Hmm.
right, with millions of budget. And so I burnt out between all those things, and in parallel, a family that is really dysfunctional and carrying everybody else's emotions. That was my role in childhood, right? So everybody else was like an emotional mess, and I tried to balance everybody.
Are you are
Mm.
you the single child?
No, I
Are you
have
the?
a sister that is 8 years older than me.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to say that she had an easier life. I think it was even worse for her because she was the
Yeah,
first one, and she had more
absolutely
immature parents than I did. But still,
true.
yeah, right. It's
Yeah.
and so how did we get there? I don't know. Like corporate, yeah. So many things,
Hmm.
many aspects contributed to me trying to do better, and even going deeper into this hamster wheel without knowing that it's not the right place for me. Because I never ever asked myself in my career, what is it that I really want to do? Like, what is it like I really enjoy? That was never a question. It was always the question, how can I have a career? Where can I like grow and also get more money, of course, in order to survive? Because I would say we grew up quite poor, and I don't wanted to have that in my in my life. And so I worked, and I overworked, and I overworked, and I didn't know what patterns there were until I burnt out.
It's so interesting because I think this what you are saying about the fact that there was always the pressure of making a career, about making money, about there was never the question, are you happy? Are you okay? Are you? I think that's something which somehow match our generations, which because there were never nobody thought about the thing. Maybe do you want to do that? Do you like that? No, you're not good at math. You have to study more. But what if I'm not good at math per se? Not good at math. Why if I don't like it? Do I need it? No.
Yeah.
Like it was not the case, but you know what I mean? Like it's so sad when we think about it, because there was never the question, what do you want to do?
Yeah. There was no room. I mean, also, I guess our parents never asked that themselves, or maybe they did,
Exactly.
but they had to do something else. At least for my mother, this applied. She wanted to do different things in life. But I think we internalized this like pattern that even our parents had to live with, because they didn't know that there was a different way. And we internalized that so much that we thought we would want that. I thought I want to have this corporate life.
Somehow the society is pushing you into that direction. You have the social pressure, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because everybody is doing that. And so you ask yourself, okay, why does it feel so strange for me? Right? But everybody else, like, you look around and you see, okay, maybe it's me. And the answer is, yes, it is me. Shit. It is really me. Damn it.
But Angela, I have a cultural difference question. So we had in Romania this social pressure. There was always the pressure of, like, I give you the example. I always give the same example. In school, you were always asked, what grade did you had? I had a 6. What the other had? They had a 4.
Yeah.
Oh, you're a good guy. Yeah. What the other have? They had a 9. What's wrong with you? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was the social pressure of X and Y that are performing better. Did you feel that in Germany as well? Growing up?
Yeah. A lot. Also in school, like, the system is really based on that, on social pressure, on shaming, on guilt tripping children. At least it was like this back then. I don't know how school is like right now, but there was a speech from a graduate quite recently, a few days ago. I can't remember the name, but she was great, and it was all over the news, and she pointed out what is wrong in the school system. And like every comment is saying, like, you talk about this, we couldn't. Thank you. Because what does it what is the consequence of grades? Yeah, you separate the children, right? You put them into single player mode. You raise competition. You I don't know, you falsify emotions. So when they get into your way, you fail, because you are not allowed to speak up. You are not even allowed to look outside the window. I mean, when I was active as a coach and corporate trainer, I guess a client told me that the school called her because her son was looking out of the window. I mean, what the fuck?
Sorry.
Really?
Sorry. This is just, this is so painful. This is so painful. Like this says a lot about the box that they put you in. Like really, they put you in a box. And I think what you said, this grade system is something which is really dangerous.
Yeah.
Because it tells you, not directly but indirectly, you're not that smart, which is not true.
Exactly.
Like, you're not
Yeah.
performing in the standard environment. Maybe, but maybe you can do arts, maybe you can do something else. And
Yeah. Yeah.
it's rarely the case that the grades are matching your life.
Yeah. True.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's so rare that you see, okay, I had a guy who was not performing at all school, and he's a homeless. He doesn't have a home. He doesn't have a job. No, that's not the case. They all find their way. All.
Yeah, all of them. And I know so many people, like there is a school system in Germany. You have 3 different schools, like Hauptschule, Realschule, Schule, and then there's Gymnasium. I don't know the words in English. But everybody thinks that when you go to the Gymnasium, you are very smart, right? But I know a lot of people who graduated only from Hauptschule, which is like considered basic, and they are entrepreneurs. How come?
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. 100% with you. 100%
Yeah.
with you. Yeah.
And the other thing I see is also this is something in Germany we still feel like there's a difference between Eastern Germany and Western Germany due to the history, right? And what I see is that like cities like Munich or Stuttgart, where I lived before I came here, they look very advanced, right? The houses are shiny, the cars are shiny, like everybody's shiny. And I don't know, you think, okay, here's really a lot of money and they all made it and everything. But when you look behind the curtain, the thing is they're so depending on only one client. Do you know one entrepreneur who's depending, like willingly depending on one client? None, right? But when you are an employee, you can say one client because there's one employer and one employee. So you are at maximum dependency. And what the difference is in Eastern Germany, there are still like some artifacts of communism in terms of they are more like, okay, I don't buy it from the store. I try to use materials or things or solutions that are already there. And maybe there's also some kind of more community. So everybody helps each other, not everywhere, and it's not applying for everyone and not every generation, but the tendency is there. And this is what I see. So some regions are very good at earning money and some regions are still better at improvising, you can say. And I mean, think it through. So when you lose your job, what then? What now? What can you really do? What are your skills? I mean, PowerPoint and Excel? Come on.
I love it. I love that you say this. I love that you say this. This what you said. It's amazing. I keep saying a lot that we are in corporate environments a factory of PowerPoints and Excels without real life skills. And I see a lot that while developing, I don't know, processes, while developing things that we have to do, lacking the life experience. There are a lot of kids coming directly from the university and they think, oh my God, I know it better than the old idiots sitting there, but lacking this life experience because they come up from the school with the theoretical knowledge. That's not life knowledge. It's just the theoretical knowledge. They've never seen a business running. They've never seen anything.
Yes.
They just knew in theory how the thing should be. And then they start developing PowerPoint and Excel skills, which is amazing.
Yeah. And also the system emphasizes that, right?
Absolutely.
And this is also the social pressure. Like everyone in my university said, okay, when you are industrial engineer, everybody needs people like you, like in interface positions. And then I graduated and it was 2008 and the crisis was there. And so nobody really had a job. Right?
Correct.
And this is one thing. And the other thing is it's so seducing to think you are great or you are doing great because all of the money that is coming in. But this is, it's a lie. Because when you lose your job, right, in Germany, you have this social net. And I mean, it's there are a lot of holes, but it works like okay, you lose a job, you still get some money within a certain time. And it can help people who considered, okay, there can be bad times, and how can I finance my life with a mortgage or for the house, for the car, etc., still when I earn less. And some people, and I know many people of them, didn't think about that. Because there have been times where they really, there was so much money and the industry was so great, automotive industry really boomed for a long, long time, and they didn't consider that. So when they lose their
Absolutely.
job now and there are so many layoffs, like tens of thousands of layoffs, I mean, when you check the news, it's like breaking down. And then I asked, okay, what now? Because you don't even know how you save money. Because it's so convenient to say, I go to the shop, I see this, I don't consider the price, and I buy it. So you also
Exactly.
lose the feeling of value.
The huge problem is that you don't live on your salary that you get. You live on a higher amount of money because you think, you know what, they will always be there. You
Yes.
don't think, oh, it might be that in 2 years I will not make the same money. You always think, no, because the market is selling you this. It's a permanent increase. Look at the stocks; they are always going up. No, they are not. Nope. No.
Exactly.
No.
But in our mind, I mean, and this is what corporate life really pushes, is there's only one way, and this is up. Or maybe you stay at the same level. But really, who considers leveling down? Do you know anybody? I don't.
Not so. I have to say, not directly. I know some people that are not living on their salary. I know some people that are always saying, okay, I have to prepare my early exit. So the only way to prepare my early exit is not to live on the amount of money that I make.
Yeah.
I just pretend I only make this amount of money and the rest is going away, and I have to come clear with what I have. And I think that's something, lessons that everyone wants to learn. The next question is, because then we come at the next bottleneck and we think what we are doing with with the leftover money, because banks.
Yeah.
So Angela, you mentioned burnout as a reason. Was there a silent increase of the level of burnout, or there was a one-time trigger where you said, okay, I cannot go on, I have to go out of this?
I guess the honest question is both. I mean, the problem is we want to stay strong, right? Like nobody is, oh, I'm too weak for this and I can't do it anymore. No, we are also, due to social pressure, you cannot make mistakes, you cannot rest without the feeling of guilt, etc. I mean, it comes with living in countries like Germany. And so, of course, I felt that, okay, this is getting more and more and more, but still, did I have a chance to make it different? Because there was a situation like in my private life, my family. So my mother was severe ill for many years before her death in 2019. And her health was decreasing. First, it was very slow, but then very rapidly. And so that led me to like leaving my 40 hours per week job, like instantly, for many, many, many events, because she was hospitalized again and nobody knew, okay, what's now? And it was an increasing amount of pressure, like organizational wise, because also I took over the family management, you can say, because you can get financial support from the government, but only when you do the paperwork, like a 400 pages, what is application for
Article 38. They call it in Germany,
okay.
and I love it.
Yeah, I forgot, luckily. And then you have this interview and you have to coordinate, and they say, okay, I'm there like tomorrow in the afternoon. And I say, yeah, I work a job, but maybe I can make it, right? So you have to be like, what is it called? For emergencies, you have to be available like every time. And I also had to do that, or I felt I had to do that. I felt it was my obligation to support my parents in that, because my father is not a native German speaker. He speaks great German, but speaking is a difference than dealing with this amount of paperwork, right? Also, I told the story of structure, and maybe in Italian roots, yeah, forget about it. And so I felt obligated to do that. Although I lived like 1 or 2 hours away from my parents. And so I had this double pressure, like in the workplace, and also living and there, and also the emotional stress. Like I never could expect in what state I would find my mother. I was always on the brink of, okay, now she's dying, but then she didn't. And I had that so many times. I don't know how many times I stood by the side of my mother's bed in the hospital thinking, okay, now she's dying. What now? I mean, losing your mother that's something, right? And I cried so many times that I came to a point where I said, okay, I don't have any tears left. I just couldn't. I guess emotionally I was already burnt out. I was functioning. And the only place that I could really cry about it, also cry about myself, because I have to watch this agony, was in my car on the way back, because nobody in my family was there for me. Like I was there for them. I was the grown up person for everybody else. Like everyone was dealing with themselves and with the situation. And I took care of them. I tried to hold everything together as good as possible, also myself. So yeah, I mean, I wasn't a project manager for nothing. This is a role you take on because you are following a pattern, right? And so I lived in that pattern also in my family. And yeah, I felt the obligation to do that. And then she died in 2019. And in that year, I took on a very big project with a lot of responsibility, and it was a mess. Really, it was a mess. But I guess my ability to see clear in that case was already not great, because everybody who understands a little bit of projects in automotive industry, etc., and what assumptions there are, what conditions there are, etc., nobody would touch that. Nobody.
Mm-hmm.
But I had the lack of experience in the automotive projects, right? I mean, I was close to them, but not really. So far, I had not done any really 100% automotive projects. And so I had the lack of experience. But also I try to work myself out of this emotional situation. And yeah, guess what happened 2 years later? And the project exploded and everything. And also I took there a lot of responsibility also for the people, because they were burning out bit by bit. And also I see that. I'm a person, I see that. I'm an empath. And so as a project manager, I also thought I am responsible for that a bit. But what could I do? I had the responsibility, but no authority to say, okay, take your time off. I couldn't do that because I was in a matrix organization. And so I could see that, I could feel that and talk with them. But I couldn't, I did not have the authority to tell them, okay, take a day off or whatever. Because the pressure was also so high, I did not have the authority. And it does something with me when I see young people slowly burning out. But what I also not recognized is that I more and more burned out. Until one day, there was a meeting, I guess. I had a meeting in the morning, and it was again a catastrophe for me. Because like working in the automotive industry for itself is a catastrophe in many things, in many ways, for many people, not for all of them. And at that day, I don't know, I was there, but I wasn't really there, and I went to the doctor and I said, I'm done. My brain stopped working, like literally. I couldn't grab my thoughts anymore. Like, it's really brain fog, but the strongest brain fog you can imagine. I was hardly able to live my life, like only getting getting some groceries, cooking, going to bed. Like really, I wasn't able to think anymore. And thinking was one of my best abilities. So I thought. When it was always like this, but one part was missing. That was the feeling. And I guess that was the reason why the only thing that I could really do, and I really did it, was crying. I cried for 3 months straight. Like really, I cried out everything. Like the constant pressure in my family, like seeing my mother die slowly. She died for a decade or so in this toxic relationship. Like you see that, but you cannot do anything. And like situations where you ask your mother, do you want to die? And I asked her, does it matter to you if you die? Because she had certain habits that speeded up her process of decay. And I asked her, does it really matter to you if you die? And she said no. In my face, right?
Wow.
And things like that. And on the other side, like my father, who cannot deal with any kind of pressure and is the worst Italian you can imagine, right? They say it's a bad temper, but for him, he never really learned to regulate himself. Also, he is following his patterns, my mother following her patterns, and being traumatized in their childhood. I understand everything, but the thing was like I could see how that really shows. And so instead of slowing a bit down and talking, there was screaming, yelling. I don't want to go into details what he did with my sister, like what it was really like. But in this situation, yeah, it was, I had to cry everything out. Also, I had to give room for pity for myself, for pitying myself, because I never did that. I always try to balance everything. And I think this was the first time that I really felt everything. And it was good. I needed that. And after 3 months, my brain started to reboot. And I mean, now I'm so happy that that happened because it changed everything. Many things became clear. Many patterns. Oh shit, there have been patterns. And oh shit, it was also my responsibility why I ended up in this position, in my last position, where I had so much responsibility but no authority. Because this was what I was programmed in school, in my family, in the social system. You mentioned it. This is a program. This is a pattern. I was programmed. I thought this is the right thing because I didn't know any difference. I didn't know that there was another way. And I think this was the start of my new life. And it also took 3 months still, then I could return to work, but I never really, I don't want to say I never recovered. I only put one foot in the door, but I never entered fully again.
But did you went back to work
Yeah.
after the 3 months?
In part-time.
Okay, you went back.
Only in part-time, and it didn't change until I left because there was one thing, or many things, of course, there are always many things that led to one realization. And I can remember because I was at the I think it was Rewe, at the Rewe shop during the day, with no crowds, with no queues. Like really in daytime in Germany, getting groceries without any stress. And I thought, wow,
This is
is
possible.
this possible, right? I tasted the freedom, you know? This was the first glimpse of, damn, this is a totally different world. And I decided, okay, I will never, never, ever give that up again. Not for any career. And then one thing led to another. I started my own business, coaching and training, and developed it, etc. What is that? A fly? I'm sorry. We're in the
No
countryside.
worries.
She's
Yeah.
still there. And so I worked again a lot, right? But only part-time for this and part-time for my own business. And yeah, so the plan was there. It was initiated, I would say, through my burnout.
Look, one of the most impressive things is that even though you said it took 3 months to realize, or it took more time to realize, I think it's important that you realize that it's too much, and I think the body always finds ways to tell us. It's important to listen to those messages, like you said. I think it's important to understand. Okay, I think this had to happen for me to understand. I was discussing the other day with a colleague of mine who said that she drove past the kindergarten and she forgot to pick her son.
I totally feel that. Really, yeah.
And this is when I said, okay, and you really didn't understood anything from that? Like, no, it can happen to anyone. No, it can't.
It can't, yeah.
No, it can't. It shouldn't. I don't know if you know, there was a case in Stuttgart for 3 or 4 months ago. I don't know if you heard about it. A lady drove to, and this is a different one. A lady drove to kindergarten to work, drove to work, and then on the way to work, she should have passed through the kindergarten. She didn't. So she went to the office and she forgot her boy in the car for the whole day. In those weeks where there was 37 degrees, of course, unfortunately, the son died.
The son died?
And then she went back.
No.
Yes.
Okay, what a pity.
And then unfortunately, she went back to the kindergarten to pick up her son because she didn't even realize that her son was in the back seat. And this is a real case which happened, I think it was some weeks ago. I will link it down in the show notes caption. And this is the moment when you have to realize, okay, that's not okay.
No.
That's something that you have to change something, because that's the biggest message that you can get, that something is not right.
Yes.
And I think the fact that you realize, Angela, is a huge fact.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know. I can totally relate with the woman, and I wish her all the best. I mean, this is something. I think it's easy to say it's her fault or something.
Yeah,
she
of course.
must change something. It's easy to individualize that because that happens to everyone with burnout. But what is really true in my eyes is that the system is absolutely inhumane. I mean, of course, you can go down the rabbit hole and say, okay, there are people who designed that system. I mean, I don't care anymore. I'm beyond that, right? I don't need any conspiracy theory to know that this is wrong, like on a structural basis, like in every corner of your social life, of your work life, etc. I mean, is it normal for humans to stay glued 8 hours or more to one place? I can tell you after...
Is it normal?
Sorry. Yeah.
Please go on. Please go on. No, please
I can tell you when I worked part-time, I couldn't do that anymore. I mean, I reduced my working time, and even then I had to stand up and stay and walk around, and my body didn't accept that anymore. My body said really fuck you, I move, right?
Yep.
If you want that or not. So.
Yeah. I don't think it's normal that we go to kindergarten, school, and then work until we were 65 or 68, or I think by the time we managed to go into the retirement, it's gonna be even 70, and then we get to enjoy our life. Because that cannot be
right.
I'm sorry.
You don't have
Exactly.
to study anything, or I don't know.
Exactly.
It's not rocket science to know that this is wrong.
Exactly.
And also, I think there is a huge lie about the life, how it was really back then. I mean, you come from Romania. You guys also had very tough times, right? But let's not consider only this, but how life really was when the people are more like self-sufficient, like when they had communities, small communities. Of course, working in the field is demanding as fuck, right? Also, back then, there was heat, there was snow in wintertime. They didn't have the tools that we have now, right? It was tough work outside the house, in the fields, and also inside the house, because when you start to homestead, I mean, this is a lot of work. But first of all, you put energy in it and you see the result like immediately. And you do that in a community. And so they managed it, I'm sure they managed it to do all these things and to still have a good life. And what was that really disturbed? Someone claiming the land is now mine and you have to pay for it to use it, right? This is the first thing. And the next thing is industrial revolution. Nobody, and I had a post like, I don't know, maybe 1 or 2 years ago, and I said, Robert Bosch is very well known in automotive and also power tools, etc. But the founder, he is really idolized from so many people. And I tell the people, okay, so maybe he had good intentions, but nobody, like really nobody, like wakes up in the morning and says, okay, now I work in the factory with no sunlight, where the machines are giving the timely structure, etc., until my very exhaustion, until I don't know, I'm totally estranged to my family. I have no community whatsoever. Nobody does that out of free will. Nobody can tell me that. And at the same time, they say, he was a good one and he built houses for his employees, etc. But he was someone, of course, who profited from people having the need to do that. Maybe they had to do it out of whatever reason. And also maybe he wasn't the reason why maybe they lost their land or something else that happened to them, but at least he wasn't like innocent. He was part of the game somehow.
You know, there is a quote which I love. I don't know if you most probably know Friends, the TV series. Do you know it? Yeah, just as an idea. Yeah, there is a nice quote in there. Of course, the comedy and it's not deep, but there's a nice quote that I love from that series, which says that there is no selfish good deed. That doesn't exist, because everyone that is doing a good deed is doing it with a background. Everyone that is doing something that looks good, there is a background interest on that. And I want to come back to what you said about working the field. I remember the day. So my grandfather was my grandparents both, they were working the field. So one of them worked in the factory, the other was all his life working the fields, or maybe doing both as well. But what I do remember, you went to the field, you went in the morning, I went in the morning. I will never forget those days. We went in the morning from home, 5 a.m. It was an enjoyment to be up on that cow-pulled carriage, which was extremely slow. We went there, we did a bit of work, then we relaxed a bit because it was the sun of the midday, like with what we talked at the beginning of our discussion. Yeah. Then we finished the work in the evening, and then we went home. But it was such a nice day because you were all day outside, like you said. There was no artificial light. There was a hard work, yes, but you came in such a good mood when you came home. And beside that, I think the next point, Angela, is that being in your own small community back then, you didn't had these huge opportunities to, I don't know, I want to travel the world, I want to buy the most expensive phone, I want to buy next year the next expensive, because you didn't know they existed. Like it was a benefit that you didn't know you had back then. So, and also you knew, I like this story a lot, you knew when your neighbor were having two cars, just exaggerating, but when you're having two cars, you know as well that they had their problems. Like you see the good, but you also saw the bad, which you don't see in today's world.
True.
Because on Instagram nobody's showing the bad.
Yeah.
Nobody's showing the
Yeah.
problems. They only show, look, I have an amazing life. An amazing life.
Yeah. Amazing. Like every day I wake up with a
Exactly.
smile, and yeah, I poop
Exactly.
glitter and
And nothing
rainbows.
bad is happening. Exactly. Angela, I want to ask you, so you said you build your own business in parallel with your last working time. What allowed you to quit?
Yeah. What allowed me to quit was, so people like to say, you are very, I don't know, gifted, or you are privileged. I was called privileged. Undereducated and privileged. This was one comment on Instagram once. And I have to smile about it because I don't think I am. But it happened that I was in a place where I made the decision I wanted to leave so badly. And I couldn't stand this environment anymore. I was so done. It was overdue. And my situation was, my budget was gone. Like all my savings, due to, I would call them bad decisions. Not spending, but helping someone. I never saw that money again. And I sat down and I felt pity for myself, because I said, okay, universe, I want to leave. I want to change my life. Why? Why now? Right? And it was so exhausting. And I remember that I went to a place where I felt like I can come in great contact to myself, and also cry. Crying helps. I love crying. I cry a lot still. And that was a cemetery. I mean, that sounds a little weird, but this cemetery was like, there have been a lot of nice trees, really old trees. And I don't know, it's a lovely place, right? And nobody cares if you cry. So you have the freedom to be outside and nobody bats an eye if you cry. I mean, it sounds so weird, but yeah, for me it wasn't. And also I already discovered this like channel to maybe an existence that it's not human only. I told you in the interview before, we had this interview before where I said that my dead mother, I saw my dead mother in the mirror standing behind me. And so this was where I got a first glimpse that, okay, there's something else. I don't know. There's another realm, or I don't know what there is, but there is something, and she's not gone. She's maybe just in another existence. So what does it mean, right? And so I started questioning everything and also opening to everything. And I don't know if this was a reason. On this cemetery, I felt like more connected, held, maybe, at ease. I love nature, and also my craving to be near or close or in nature was going through the roof. And so this was a really nice place to me. And I was sitting there crying and thinking, trying to think my way out. Of course, it does not work. But I don't know what happened, but I felt the pull like going on. And so one day it happened at work. I mean, this is a part of a bigger story, and I have to tell that in different sections, in parts. And so at work, I saw, okay, now there are going to be some layoffs with a compensation.
Ooh,
and
nice.
we all got a PowerPoint presentation. And I swear, on the last slide of the PowerPoint presentation, Also, it said that, okay, it's not for my department, but for other departments. And I was like, I was so close. And then the last slide said, okay, this and this and this, if this comes together, then it's for me also possible. It was quite tricky and nobody understood the process, but I was like, eh? Eh? Do I have a chance? I don't know, but I want to find out. And so I was so focused on that, really. And I called everybody I knew, like the work council. The word is work council, Betriebsrat, right? And I talked to
The union.
union. I talked with everyone, and nobody really knew because they said, it's new. We have never done that before, and the process is in the making. And I was like, okay, you have published this PDF. Why don't you know? Okay, so it took months, really months, until someone said, okay, you have to talk to them or to this person. He was the project manager of this whole thing, like chess pieces. He could shift chess pieces, people like chess pieces from one point to another, and then they could get the compensation and the other ones would stay in. It's totally a mess, but it works. And he said me, yeah, that's great that you found me, because of course it was his goal to let go of as many people as possible, right? So it was his motivation to help me out of egotistic reasons, but I didn't give a fuck, right? And so I said, okay, let's try this. And so the universe, I guess, interfered. That today I'm so convinced more than anything else that there is a plan for us. And everything happens for us. And so it happened that on one day, my former boss called me and asked me, okay, Angela, do you want to leave? And I was like, what? I wasn't ready for this conversation, right? Because I wanted to make sure, because I would tell him. I had the plan to tell him because he was really okay as a person and as a boss, but I wasn't ready. But something decided for me that it was ready, and so weird story. He asked me, and I said, "Yeah." I was really I was a pressure cooker inside, and I was so angry because, someone told him. And so, okay, I said, okay, yes, I want to go. Okay, I am ready. Okay, I understand now. Yeah, I have to go. And here, okay, I'm in. Yeah, I go. Okay. And it was really, I felt that it was a sign. It was really a push. So here the door's open. Now go. Go the fuck.
Go.
But go. And we figured this out and everything was great. But it took us, again, months. And I mean, really, in this situation, you are so overdone, overdue. Everything is in tension and the pressure. And at the same time, okay, what do I do next? It was all at the same time. So I wasn't sure if this would work out. But I also had to decide to sell my apartment, right? To find someone who purchased it, time everything right, and then still, okay, what was the plan then? Because why did I want to sell it? Because I did not want to enter the next hamster wheel. Because when you calculate, okay, what can you really get in terms of money per hour of coaching or corporate training, then you quickly realize that you have to work your ass off to keep the same living standard. And I said, okay, what's my priority? It's freedom. And I don't give a fuck about living standard, really. And so I decided to let it go because the mortgage was very high. I mean, no problem with the money I earned, but when you change the situation of living, as you said in the introduction, you have to change like everything. You cannot go just a little bit out of the system. When you decide, you have to let go everything, also your standards. And so that was the next decision. Okay. And so, and what then? I had a boyfriend, and why Hungary? He was a Hungarian, he had Hungarian parents. And so this was my first contact with Hungary at all. Like a year before I made the decision to come here. And the plan originally was we go together and we buy some land and get some animals, etc. But when I was in the situation like to how can I get this compensation, nothing happened in terms of planning, in terms of realizing it. And so
he was theoretical.
exactly. And so I decided also to separate. And now, I mean, everything that I did on my own. I had to figure out for myself because I tasted the freedom and I wanted it so badly, no matter the cost.
But Angela, I have a technical question. Why not Italy?
Um,
Now knowing the Italian heritage.
I never felt connected to Italy because you have to know that my Italian grandfather died before my my birth. My grandmother, I don't think I met her, or at least I can't remember. So no bonding, no connection, no nothing. Also in Germany, no relatives, no Italian relatives. I don't speak Italian.
Okay, so completely disconnected.
Completely disconnected,
makes sense.
yeah. And this is a duality
Completely.
because I have an Italian last name, but I don't speak Italian. And this applies for so many other things in my life, really. So people assume something, but it's totally different, sometimes weird in reality. Yeah.
So you pick Hungary, you got the compensation, which was a nice kickstart. Even though it took a lot of time, was a nice kickstart to give you the possibility to leave. Because I think one of the biggest problems that a lot of people have to find is the right moment, like you said, to everything, all the stars to come together, to have the right moment to say, okay, now I have to. Like there is no going back. You decided it's going to be Hungary. How did everything went on? Because you didn't speak the language, right?
I don't speak the language. I mean, I speak now. It's 1 year straight that I'm in Hungary, and I think it's okay to say that I know basic conversation now. I was never intimidated by that, to be honest, because I know I'm a quick learner, and yeah, people say it's very complicated, but it's just another kind of logic for me, right? And I know you can work with affirmations. When you say everything is so exhausting and so difficult, then it is. When I say, okay, I stay open and I will make it somehow because other people did that too, then I'm at least open. I don't have the stress. I learn easier and I don't pressurize myself. I don't take any lessons.
Look, I had the same with German because everyone said in German in there said, "Oh, that's a awful language," you know. And there was a moment in which I realized that actually the like you said, mathematical thinking, like I realized that the baggage of words are in fact so low, and whenever you need a new word, you just take 3-4 words or 2 words and put them together, and then you make a new word. Because this is it. If you think about it, I mean, you can make every word. I realize in the meantime that you can just write it together. No, but if
people understand,
and then you can make exactly. Yeah. My story with Bezirk Schornsteinfeger. I still have the story in my head. There was when that paper came into my post, I had a panic attack because I have never seen such a long word until that point.
And it makes sense, but it makes no sense at the same time. So it's you just have to take it as it is, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And like you said, the moment in which you accept it and say, okay, I will do it, I think that's a different thing because it's a setting. It's a mental setting.
Of course. It's always a mental setting, and it's like a handshake between like every resource that you have. And it's not only your mind, it's also your intuition, it's also your body, your nervous system, etc. And so you asked me how the story went on. So I was sitting again on the cemetery because I had another problem. Because I decided, okay, I want to go to Hungary still. How can I realize it? And I had no solution because I knew that you have to go to a country, like take a look around, take your time, and then the right thing will find you. I was convinced of that thought, right? I couldn't see myself like leaving work for the time that was left, doing the selling of the apartment, at the same time taking days off, go to another country, take 2 weeks like full with visiting real estates from real estate. What is the name? Agents. Thank you.
Agents.
I didn't see myself there. And I knew that that wasn't the solution, but I couldn't think of a solution. So I was at the cemetery and something pulled me to a horse farm that was close. It was like 100-meter away. And of course, I like horses, but I never had really a contact with horses. I never had one. I don't know why even, but I met the owner some days ago, and he was, I don't know, a funny guy, messed up, but funny. And I don't know why, but something pulled me there. And I said, okay, maybe I just do something totally different in addition to my 2 jobs. And that was cleaning the stall for the horses. Because I asked him, okay, do you have something where I can work with my body, like physically? Because I needed something where I don't use really my brain. Because in both of the other jobs, I had to use my brain excessively. And so I wanted something for balance. And I just went to him and I asked him, and he said, okay, this is what you can do. And I said, okay, great. Why not? I mean, shoveling horse shit is something that I wanted to do my whole life. But and yeah, you are in contact with animals, and so it had its advantages, right? I decided to focus on that perspective, right? And so we came close, the horses and me, and it was a great experience, really. And I had no fear, and the people realized that, okay, you don't have any connection to horse, but you don't have no fear because they are huge, really. But it was like, we are just like, we coexisted, and it was a great time, although it was in some exhausting. My life was so exhausting. Like, really. I was feeling my energy like floating away because it took so long. And I still had no solution. But one time, there was a young woman. Her name is Regina. And she was there with her son. Only that time, only once, right? And only in that window where I was also there. So we met in this like 30 minutes and we immediately clicked. And I don't know, I loved her attitude and there was a connection. And I told her my story and that I want to leave and I don't know how. And she was like, okay, that's interesting because it's my last day in Germany. I bought a camper van and now we are leaving towards Spain. Here's my solution. Right? And I was like, okay, now I know why I'm here, shoveling horse shit. Interesting. Right? And this is so when you're open to the feeling, to what your intuition, your soul, call it whatever you want, but there's something that knows. And if you follow that feeling, then you will be led to the solution. But it takes trust. And this was the first time that I really experienced what can happen when you do that, when you lean into trust. Because I could have questioned, hey, why should I go to the horse farm? Really? I mean, I'm a project manager, right? I earn 6 figures. Why should I do that? I mean, in full time, not in part time. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The standard, like,
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I'm too good for that.
Ego. When you let the ego die, you can only win.
You can only win. And I said, okay, I don't care, right? I also renovated my apartment and I lived in a mess and I have seen worse times, right? And okay. And also I grew stronger. So there are only benefits. And so here was my solution. And I did just that. I bought a camper van and I had to organize like everything so that the timing was letting go of the apartment, getting the compensation, getting the camper ready because we had to add some solar panels, etc. because I wanted to work there as a coach and trainer, and you need a lot of electricity. And It was so exhausting, really, because it was so many things at the same time, and still I was still led, because that was the next question: where do I get a camper van, and what kind of? And so many decisions, and how worked it out. I tried to lean even more into trust, and I opened my eyes and my sensors, all of them, to everything, because I knew I needed help. I needed help.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that many people told me, go to Facebook, because there are so many camper van groups, and now this is the life you want to have. I mean, there's a lot of support. And I was like, I've done with Facebook. I hated it. I still hate it. It's not my thing. But I realized, okay,
Never had Facebook.
yeah,
Never had Facebook. Never. I never had it. I
there's
don't want
nothing
it.
to
I'm
miss
sorry.
out.
Absolutely.
But there was a reason, and I trusted again. And I realized that 3 people told me that to go on Facebook. And I said, okay, wait a minute, that's a pattern. I'm a good pattern recognition person. And so I did that, and I searched such a long time before for a camper, and every camper was too expensive or too far away, or I don't know. And then after 4 days on Facebook, there was an ad in my feed.
4 days.
I was 4 days on Facebook, yeah. And I saw that camper van. I said, I love it. Where is it? And I don't know, you are really near to it. I don't know if you know that place, Brackenheim.
Of course.
Yeah, how close
Of course.
is it?
It's on the other side of the big city from me. So it's maybe 25, half an hour.
And for me, it was
minutes,
30 minutes. And I said,
okay, because you came from north. Yeah, right. Yeah.
And I said, okay, that can't be a coincidence. And so I went there, and it was not like everything was in a flow. It was a little bit complicated with the seller, but still it was okay. I felt it's right. And why did I feel I'm in the right place? Because there are so many layers on the story. I'm sorry when it gets complicated.
No, it's okay. It's interesting. I like it.
I have to write a book, but I don't know where to start, because it's so much. And so I went there to the place, and at that time I had my BMW. It was built in 2011, and it was my everything. Really, it was my safe space for my emotions, I told you before. And it was old, but you have never seen a better maintenance car, right? And it was very powerful. Like
this is, I have to say, I'm sorry for interrupting, but this is the German cliché, right? Like, there is nothing that a German loves more than his car.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And it was my protector when nothing else was. Yeah, he had a role.
Absolutely.
I say he because it was a quite masculine car. It was very fast. Not very fast, but around about 300 horsepower. And I liked it. Yeah, I'm an engineer, you know.
Yeah, okay, makes sense.
Sports suspension and tinted windows. Yes, exactly. Not very cliche for a woman, but still I loved it. And I loved the engine. I knew everything about it. I can tell you every detail still. So I had this car, and I drove there, and at that place, it was like a parking area, but also there were many shops for people who tune their cars. And I went there, and I looked around. I saw the camper vans and some other stuff, and I saw the shops and many, many BMWs. Many. But only the type of BMWs that I loved, like the old ones.
Oh, okay.
I spare you the details of the types, but I was like, okay, that was so obvious that something was going on. I mean, it's not a coincidence. It could have been like every car, like Fiat or I don't know, Ford, whatever. But it has been BMWs, like the ones I love. And so I learned also, and this is still part of my life, when I feel a connection then there's something that wants my attention. A good decision could be behind it, right? Or a good opportunity. And it never failed me since then. I learned the rules. I guess that was the time where I learned the rules, how my life works, maybe life in general, but how my life works, because I had the connections in other stories here as well, and it never failed me. When I felt the connection, it was right. And so we did the deal. And also another problem was solved with that, because I really couldn't wrap my head around where do I get a space for my stuff. Because living in a camper van means you have to let go of everything. But of course, it's not possible, right? You can let go of furniture, but you still have clothes, etc. And a camper van is quite small place. So you have to store something or find a storage. And I couldn't. And I wasn't willing to pay like 150 euros per month, because you never know how long it takes to find land and storage, etc. and move. And I even printed flyers beforehand because I was so desperate to find a solution for my stuff. And so it happened that behind that parking place, there was a storage, like a garage, from the same guy who also rented out the parking lot. You understand? And I mean, then you are in a situation you cannot ignore that. You cannot ignore the fact that there's a plan. So it was meant to be. That doesn't mean it wasn't stressful. It was. Really, it was. But everything fell into place. And so I knew that was the right decision. If you ask me if I feared the decision, of course, because it was in something entirely different. Leaving the system, like in total, right? But I knew I had to do it without knowing.
Was it the decision that you feared, or the future that you feared?
I guess both, because it also meant to do something that was also completely new, to 100% lean into trust. Into trust that everything works out just fine without knowing. And there's one word, we talked about this before, and many people who leave the system describe the same, the void. Because you know you cannot repeat the same patterns. That means you cannot repeat the same, or you cannot install the same system. Like, you quit a job here in this country, you get a new job in another country, and you think everything will change. This is not possible. Because, I mean, for many people, this is what they do, and not every journey is the same. But I knew for myself, I cannot do the same in another country. I also thought that I could here, like, sit in Hungary and do my coaching business. I was wrong. But was it a mistake? No. Because the reason why that was so important, also the corporate training and the coaching, etc., because it helped me. It gave me something that I could hold on, and that gave me also a bit of the feeling of safety, that this would carry me until I was here. It wasn't a mistake. It was a chapter. But finally,
it was not the goal. It was the way.
Exactly. It was some kind of vehicle.
Exactly.
Because if I would have known back then that things would change, and I would get the feeling, okay, I've done enough. I've had enough. This was the feeling, I can't do this. I can't do this anymore. I'm talking about coaching and training. If I would have known that, I would have the guts to let go, because this was my safety vest, you can say.
Safety net.
Safety net.
Was the safety net, for sure.
My mental safety net.
For sure. Absolutely. I think the It's interesting how things are coming together. I still remember my father used to have a saying that it's always coming. It's always every problem is going to be solved somehow.
Mm.
So there is always a solution. You just haven't found it
Yeah.
yet. And I think that's exactly somehow what you are saying through the stories, because somehow the things are connecting with each other. But it's important to see the signs, right? It's
Yeah.
important to see and to
Yeah,
consider them.
exactly. And to be open to the fact that you are so much trained to only listen to your brain. But this is
Absolutely.
only a very small part of the story. You need your brain because your intuition leads you somewhere, and you need your brain to do the rest, you can say, right? But at the same time, there's
Correct.
also the nervous system, the fear, the upcoming fear. Okay, so what now? I can't do this job anymore. Oh shit, right? What is, how will be the financial stability when my money runs out? It's not the case yet. Yeah, luckily. But of course, I think about that, and I cried many times and I had sleepless nights because it's not a problem yet, but we are trained to think in risks. Okay, there's a big risk. Oh my God, I have to find a solution, right? And so yeah, this is an intersection, and you have the choice to again step into the hamster wheel and push and push and push and try to find a solution, like in the style you did before in the old world when you ran on the patterns unconsciously. Or you say, okay, everything changed. Obviously, there are other laws or, I don't know, ways how life really works. So do you really trust that you can sit down, relax, keep on going, of course, like renovating, doing your stuff, but not overworking yourself, letting the space be, the void be, like become comfortable maybe in it and trust? And I think this is where I am now. I don't know where my life is or how my life is in 1 year from now. I just don't know. I don't know how everything will be and what really carries me, because of course I want to have something like a community and that we raise the animals together and that we farm, etc. But it's all in the making. It's not there yet. We are building. And I think this is the biggest challenge, to stay comfortable in the void and not falling back into this survival exhausting mechanism of I can only rest when I mitigate the risk somehow, right? When I get the job. Just be there, step by step. Stay present, stay in the moment, don't plan.
But it's interesting how we prefer, because I do understand what you're saying. So the thing that you are afraid of is actually the uncertainty.
Yeah.
So you don't know what will happen. I think that's something which is giving you fear, but is a happy uncertainty.
It's freedom. It's
exactly.
It's always in balance, and the universal laws, right? As above, so below, and
exactly,
etc.
Because the other option is the unhappy certainty.
Yeah.
And it's always
I like this. Yeah.
It's always a balance between the happy uncertainty or the unhappy certainty. So you have to pick at the end. I like the German saying, we have to die at that, right? So you have to choose. You have to choose one of those, and I think that's what makes it so interesting. We are used to choose safety.
Yeah.
And I think the brain is pushing us to choose safety, because the brain is saying, the brain has an advantage on you every time. Like the brain has an advantage that you don't see on you, because it's always the panic mode, the conservation mode in scope. And the conservation mode is always saying, oh, safety. It doesn't matter, safety. Just go to safety. And I think as soon as you acknowledge this and you say, okay, this is what I choose to do, and duck you, I don't care what you say, because
it's time for a break. And also we are trained to think that safety is only structural or financial safety. And it couldn't be
Exactly.
further from the truth, because what we tend to ignore is that we also need emotional and mental safety. And that was missing, so much missing in my life. I don't know about your life. You have a corporate life, right? And people, we have been trained to only focus on financial safety. But why
Yeah.
are there so many people depressed? Why are the young people telling, okay, fuck off, I won't do the same mistakes as you boomers, for example, because they know earlier, they're quicker, right? And we can learn a lot from the younger generations. And I think they embrace more the fact that there's something else. There are other ways,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. And it's obvious in the hiring process that we are doing at the moment, that you see that people are focusing on the work life balance. They're
Yeah.
focusing on yes, I come here, I do the work, I don't leave to
Mm.
work. No, I do the work so that I can leave. But that's the only reason, that I don't make it as my life purpose. And
Yes.
I think that's so
That's so
important.
important, and they're so brave also to do that and to make that public. They talk about, you see it everywhere on the internet, and there's a war, right?
But But
Mm.
Angela, there is I think the problem is that there is not the problem, but their benefit is that they are learning from our lessons, and they are smart to do that, but they are also have an advantage that we didn't have in the past. So our main goal was
Mm.
survival, because we took that
Mm.
from our parents. Their main goal was survival. There was never discussion about. So I think there was never discussion about
Mm.
happiness, or
Mm.
no,
Mhm. Mhm.
survival. That was the basic. So we overcome that aspect, right? We overcome the survival aspect, and we give the next generation the opportunity to see, okay, now survival is done. Okay, basic needs are covered,
Mm.
done. What's in for me now?
Yeah.
What's in for my soul now?
Yeah.
Because we never talk
Mhm.
about this.
Yeah, and I don't think they see it
Angela,
as an advantage, because they're confronted with everything that we learned at school doesn't apply anymore. So I don't know if that feels comfortable, but they are one step further. Yeah,
ahead of
ahead of
us.
us. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm.
They are one step ahead of us. You mentioned you wanted to do coaching,
Mm.
or you said, okay, I want to do coaching. I still want to work from the van. How much was the van period? How long was the van
Mm.
period?
Um, it was around about 9 months. And there was a time I met my boyfriend in Hungary. And so the last month, it was like I was at his place and in the van, and it was like a little bit mixed, but it was around about 9 months. Yeah. And I had one tour, like 1 month, 1.5 months, where I toured through Germany for meetings with customers for the trainings. That was last year. It was planned upfront. I found a piece of land and the house here, and then it was planned to go back for this period of time. And since then, I'm here, and so it has been 9 months. Yeah.
Before you left
Hmm.
Germany, before, of course, there was a process. Like we talk about, the process was long, but in that process, did you had someone trying to convince you not to do it?
Um, not to go to, not to come to Hungary. Yes.
Exactly.
Um, yeah, I met her through corporate life. She's Romanian too, or she's Hungarian, but moved to Romania, I guess. I can't remember exactly. Anyway, she grew up in Budapest, and she told me, no, you can't do that, and that's a mess, and I don't know. And she was really, I wouldn't want to call it aggressive, but she was really trying to convince me not to come here.
Mm-hmm.
That was interesting, and I wondered why, because I mean, it's just could be like, why did she care? I didn't understand, right? And so I reflected myself. I mean, it's not like I doubted myself, but I see those things. It wasn't really a conflict, but maybe those conversations as a chance to reflect and to say again a clear yes to myself, to my intuition, to my trust. Because why was I convinced to come here? The feeling. Many people say
Mm-hmm.
it's, I don't know, the weather, it's nice, the countryside is nice, the people are nice. That's true. still true. But what really convinced me was the feeling. As soon as I crossed the border to Hungary from, for example, Austria, I feel like really the veil is lifted, like the pressure falls out of my shoulders. And this is such a feeling, you can't ignore that. And I know many people who tell the same. And so again, I just knew. And everything else is, and then the brain comes into play. I knew that everything else I will figure out somehow. Because also people live here, right? And they also figured it out. So there's no country where you cannot live because they're living people. This is really, that you came to Germany and you will find a way somehow. Yeah. But it depends on your openness to adapt also the lifestyle there. And I have to say it's still in the process. Right? Because I was a very structured person. I still am. But in terms of urgency, I do myself a huge favor to even more adapt, thinking, okay, you cannot finish that today, but tomorrow is also a day. Like really calm down, get out of the survival mode. And that takes some time.
Yeah,
it takes
absolutely.
time.
I think there's nothing that you can let go from one day to another, Angela. That's something that's a process. For sure, that's a process. Yeah. I think the result will come. But I would say more about that in our next session.
For sure.
Where we dig deeper into the Hungarian experience, the way to end the Hungarian experience, because we went on a lot of rabbit holes, but I loved it. It was a fun conversation,
Thank you,
Angela, and looking for the next
one.
one.
Me too. Thank you so much. It was a lot of fun for me too, and thank you for having me. And yeah, it's great to tell the story.
Thank you. Amazing story. I told you offline, I tell you online as well. Amazing story. I think a lot of learnings from it for a lot of people. For a lot of people to set up the right priorities, because we only live once, unfortunately. Yeah, maybe we don't, but in this, I guess we have to make the best out of this, what we call life. Exactly. And yeah, in that case, I agree. Then we see what's coming up. So see you at part 2. See you in part 2. See you. Bye-bye.